Michael Gallacher, the CEO of Ports Australia. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Great to see you again.
You too. Now, tonight is all about celebrating the supply chain and logistics industry in terms of ports and how the supply chain can work together with the ports going forward. What have you got to say for that?
Well, it's so important. Whilst people are looking at what's happened over the last year with the awards tonight, what I'm asking them to look is beyond that. Where do we go from here? And this organisation, Ports Australia, others in the supply chain, we can't work on our own. We actually have to work collaboratively to help one another, to understand each other's issues and take those issues forward as much as we can as a team. It's the only way we're going to start to educate government that the entire industry, the supply chain industry, is very clear.
That's it. And Sue, as a chair of SCLA, what initiatives do you have in place to further work with Ports of Australia and other ports as well?
It's working with everyone. It's not just working with Ports Australia.
Yeah, fair enough.
As Mike said, everything starts and ends with the port.
Yeah.
There's all that in between. And we're all on the same team. And we all need to band together to make sure that the supply chain is as efficient as it can be, as commercial as it can be, because it's the backbone of our economy.
Yeah. Mike, you mentioned digitisation and decarbonisation as well. Could you please elaborate a little bit about that?
Well, we're going to see that being thrust upon us at an international level. So what we're saying to our members is start to think about it now, not only in terms of what you're doing, but also the commodities and the products that you're dealing with. There are commodities, clearly coal is an issue for many people, but not just limited to that. There could be fuel, there could be other areas, be they fossil fuels, carbon-based. There are a whole host of issues where people are now starting to look at their supply chain in that manufacturing, and they're asking people, what are you doing in relation to Scope 1, Scope 2 and Scope 3 emissions? It cannot just be simply a case of saying, well, I'll put some solar panels on the roof, I've done my bit.
Yep.
That is not going to cut it. More and more organisations are going to be asked, what are you doing going forward? And of course, this is a supply chain we have here today that very much relies on road and rail.
Yeah.
And they are going to be at the forefront of it. So we need to understand where can we build those efficiencies into play so we're utilising less road and rail going forward, but it's more an efficient use of it.
Okay.
That's a bigger discussion. And government is going to come to us.
Yeah.
The entire supply chain, they're going to come to us and they're going to say, what are you doing? Let's not be caught asleep at the wheel.
Just how closely are you guys working together? When you previously mentioned that it's all everybody working together, but what initiatives are in place to actually tackle these issues?
Well, decarbonisation, as Mike mentioned, it's coming to the forefront. It's happening overseas. Businesses, government are holding everyone to account on decarbonisation and the targets. We can't be running behind on this, and unfortunately, with our industry here in Australia, sometimes it's a bit of an ostrich effect where we stick our head in the sand until it actually belts us on the head.
Yeah.
But we need to really embrace what is coming, and we need to embrace it quickly because we're not going to have a choice. And as Michael said, it's government that's going to impose these parameters on industry. And if industry isn't at the forefront and hasn't got the right foot forward in looking at what they're doing in their own businesses and with their suppliers and with their customers, they're going to really feel a lot of pain.
Yeah. Have you seen a shift in that? Change in attitude?
A little bit. Probably not enough that needs to be shifted, but certainly industry, through disruption, through COVID, a lot more open to technology and seeing how things can be done better by using data analytics and by using different tech solutions. So this is where us as an association, we've been pushing tech for decades. This isn't a new phenomenon.
No, it's not.
If you look at our national partner, Monica, most of it is tech companies servicing the industry. So it's great that, I suppose in one way, COVID has caused this disruption to get companies to really embrace what the future is going to hold.
Yeah.
And with us, we're seeing it now that increasingly there's more pressure on organisations' social licence, their ability to operate within a community. Communities are now starting to ask, what are you doing about the noise? What are you doing about the emissions? What are you doing about the emissions coming from truck operators, from trains? It's growing within community. And Sue's 100% right. We can't put our head in the sand in relation to this. We need to start discussing it but I need to know what the road and rail operators and others in Sue's organisation who are involved in the supply chain, what are their challenges, as equally they need to know ours.
Is it a matter of of the change in the demographic when it comes to the supply chain logistics in the age? Are we talking about newcomers
Look, it's a little bit of that, but it's
Yeah.
more a change of mindset.
Yeah.
It's more a change of understanding that this isn't going to go away. Decarbonisation is not a buzzword. It's
Yeah.
not just something that's going to be thrown out there. I've been involved in a number of initiatives at the moment, and just looking at large tenders. The biggest section now is, what are your carbon emissions? And this is to road and rail operators. What is your strategy for reducing them?
Yeah.
And a lot of businesses are still scratching their head going, what do you mean? What do I need to fill in here? What do I put in the boxes? So it's something that businesses need to come to grips with very quickly. Look at what's happening overseas, embrace the change, be on the front foot, get your strategy, your policy, and your action plan in order.
Yeah, definitely.
We're not seeing it just with demographics. Obviously, that's in the workplace, and we're seeing younger members of staff coming forward with a different view than historically would have been the case. We're now seeing it top down. We're actually seeing it from boards of directors, independent boards of directors who are coming forward, and they may well be board members on a host of other portfolio areas. They're coming down and they're asking the question, what are we doing in this space? So it's growing. Digitalisation is coming. The question is, and I learn from this sector, because this sector very much relies on IT and the software platforms that are available. We've got ours. At some point in time, we've got to start to work in relation to what is the optimum system that we need in place. Are there various systems we can have? I'm not an IT expert. I listen to those that are, and they say there's no doubt with government having pressure put on them, they're going to push it down to us.
And just very lastly, Michael, what are some of the key lessons that Ports Australia has learned throughout the time of COVID?
The time for us is, the big lesson for us is just how strong our supply chain was. When you think of the thousands of vessels that came in to Australian waters, into every port, and every one of those vessels had a pilot on board, only one, and that was on the far north coast of Queensland, following a Torres Strait passage, did that person contract COVID. Every other person who boarded a vessel put in place strict measures to protect himself, to protect his work colleagues and their families. The big message for us was, we're robust, we're strong, and if we follow the protocols, we can survive these things and keep the country going. So for us, we're very proud of the outcome. Pilots did a great job, and it shone right through the entire sector, right down to the person stacking the shelves at Woolworths and Coles. Everyone took their role seriously and did it. It's great.
Well, we're here to celebrate all of that tonight, so thank you for this interview.
Thank you. Great to see you again.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Goodbye.